Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Bryce is Right. I am Brycearonee, and as always, my mission is to promote positive atheism and secular humanism. And this week, I have a very special guest. Um, we kind of popped up at the same time there. He's so special.
Mhm.
But now, hear me out, guys. I know it seems like I say that every episode. This week, I have a very special guest, but for real, this is a special guest because he is none other than Charlie the Deist, aka Chuck Wagon. But you guys might be asking yourself, who's Charlie the Deist and how come I've never heard of him before? And if you are, it's because he's not famous and he doesn't
Far from.
have a. You're not famous, right? You're infamous, but you're not famous.
To a few,
Um,
yes.
he does not have a large social media presence, but he is special in a different sense. He's actually the first deist I will have interviewed on this show,
Mhm.
and he also happens to be my best friend. We have
You got a
known each
twofer.
other. We've known each other for quite some time, I have to
I
say.
can't even remember how far back that is.
Well, fortunately, I can, and but we're gonna get into that. I don't want to waste too much time. I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. And actually, since you popped up at the same time I did, normally I pop people up afterwards so that I can say, Charlie, come on down. You are the next guest on The Bryce is Right. I stole that, obviously, but no copyright infringement.
Lame.
So, well, come on down.
All right, thanks. Hey,
How you
everybody.
doing? First
I'm
of
doing
all,
good. Life down in Los Angeles is actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be, but it's kind of like home. It's kind of like Berkeley.
yeah. So now, obviously, I'm well acquainted with you already,
Hmm.
but just go ahead and introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background. We know you live in Los Angeles, and we know you're from
Yes.
Berkeley.
All right,
So
and that's all that you need to know.
that
Now,
is, yeah.
um, okay, let's
How
see. So I am a
how old are
California.
you, first of all?
I first, what am I? 43 years old.
Ooh, man, you're
Slightly
getting up
older
there.
than Bryce. I think I got you beat by like 4 or 5 months.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, sounds about
yeah,
right.
that's about right. So, California native. Lived in California most of my life, minus the military time. But California has always been my home. I joined the army back in the '90s. Holy cow! Uh, before some of my wife's friends were even born. Um, Yeah, so I joined the army back in '96. Was in the infantry. I just had to do something other than the granola hippiness that I grew up with around there. So I picked the exact opposite. Joined the army. I did that for 6 years, and then jumped over to the Air Force. Mainly because I was in the infantry with the army. Got hit with stop loss. They were gonna send me back to a normal infantry unit, and I didn't want to fight. Fighting wasn't really like it wasn't me. So I mean, I salute the guys who did it. I'm proud of my time in the army, but it just wasn't for me. So I jumped over to the Air Force as uh, a way to kind of get out of that. And I wasn't planning on making the military like my a career, right? I was going to do a couple years, get out, and then move on with my life. But ended up staying to 22 years and met some of my best friends in my life. You know, Bryce is one of them. Bryce is my oldest best friend in the service
Aw, your oldest best friend.
in age, not for time span.
Oh shit. Oh, well. Nice. So, by the way, happy Veterans Day.
Happy
Happy
Veterans Day to you.
belated Veterans Day, I
Yes,
should
same.
say. We spoke recently for the first time in a while. Like spoke on the phone. It had been a
Yeah,
little
it's
while.
been like several months. Yeah.
Yeah. So you started off in the army.
Hmm.
You were in the army for 7 years, I think.
Yeah, just it was like 6 years and 4.5 months, I think, when I finally swapped over.
Mm-hmm.
So is that right? No,
You
no, it
don't
would
have
have
to
been
get the
seven
math.
years. You're right. It was 7 years I was in the army. So it
See,
was
see, I know you better than
you
you know
know me better
yourself.
than I remember myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did a little over seven. Actually, 7 years almost to the day.
I
7
know.
years and 1 day before I joined the Air Force.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
as
you
I'm
were in the
looking at
Air
the
Force
dates.
for how long?
So from 2003 until I retired in 19.
No, you
So it
didn't.
was,
Wait, 2019 you retired?
yes, I retired. My retirement day was 1 December 2019.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So what is that?
I
Almost,
thought you were about to say 19 something. I'm like, it hasn't, it's been
oh,
more recent
no.
than that.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. So I did, what's it, over 13 years in the Air Force.
Wow. Yeah. So that is a complete full military career. Thank
Hmm.
you for your service. I've got some pictures here to just kind of take us down memory lane.
Yes.
Uh, this is you. Most of these are all in your Air Force years,
That is true.
obviously. Um, Gosh, that bottom left one. Look how
Oh God,
young
I was a
you are.
baby. I can't believe it.
Look at that
And those
stud.
amazing uniforms that we used to have.
Yeah.
So skinny. Look at me. Yeah.
And all these pictures here at the top. This is you behind the stick of
See that?
various aircraft.
Yeah, it was a MiG-15 on the top left. B-25 was actually in the bombardier section. I didn't get to fly
Yeah.
that one. So I sat up there and just looked down a bomb site over Los Angeles the whole time. The right one, I believe, was also in the MiG.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think I've flown that as well. Um,
Yes.
yeah. And actually, speaking of me, there's me at the
Right.
bottom
At my
right,
retirement ceremony. Yeah.
officiating your retirement ceremony.
Because
I,
I
of
retired
course,
after you. Right. So I
Pastor
retired.
Bryce.
Yeah. Pastor Bryce.
Yeah, yeah. I'm obviously a civilian in that picture. So, yeah, good times. Lots of memories.
Yeah.
Do you miss it?
Some parts of it, right? So I enjoy the freedom that I have outside of the military,
Hmm.
but there's just certain things like I actually do miss putting on the same uniform every day, right? I missed being a flight chief. I missed being, like in charge of all these guys, and I miss, teaching them. Even the bad parts were chewing their asses out. All right, sorry, language. Chewing them
No,
out.
you're good.
Like I
You
miss that stuff.
you can use whatever
Um,
language you want on this show.
yes.
Usually after a couple of months, when I steal and splice a couple episodes together from my channel, I bleep out all of the profanity. But
Bryce knows me very well, so if
yeah.
I stuck to that role, I mean, you wouldn't hear anything in those clips. I'd just be
So don't make my work too difficult for me. But yeah, I miss those times as well. I have to say, the times when we would like argue over
I,
leadership styles,
God, I
and
I
it
do
was so
miss
much
that. I
fun.
miss the hours of debate that we used to have
That's right.
at Airborne Laser program that we were on at the test pilot school. We had spent many good hours, even as we were roommates for a few years, right? So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
we've
we
had.
served together.
uh
Actually, we served together technically twice because we were in two different
mhm,
units. We were in airborne laser, as you said, and we both worked at the test pilot school.
yeah.
I think we were the two highest ranking enlisted people at one point at that school,
Oh yeah.
which isn't saying a lot because it's mostly commissioned
It was
officers.
all officers, right? So it's just like who's the leader of the peons, right?
Yeah, that'd
We
be
were the
me.
leaders of the one percenters at TPS.
All right, so that's military stuff.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen my show before?
I watched the one where I can't remember his name, the guy, the physicist, the astrophysicist.
Ethan Siegel.
Yeah, Ethan. So that one was
Yeah.
a fun one to watch.
Yeah. So normally, what I do here, I do a little bit of that. I kind of I have a wide variety of guests. Sometimes I have panelists. I spend a lot of time talking theology. Our channel is the Atheist Network group,
Hmm.
right? And so everybody here, for the most part, identifies as some form of atheism. My show, I like to talk about humanism as well and these various other things. But one of the things I ask all of my guests is about their religious beliefs or their theological beliefs.
Hmm.
So I introduced you as Charlie the Deist, but that's a label that you haven't really applied to yourself. It's just kind of I made it up when I was trying to think of something clever to call you.
Right.
But I think it's appropriate based
I
on
think so too.
Yeah, based on how well I know you and the conversations we've had in the past.
Hmm.
So, in your own words, how would you describe your religious slash theological beliefs?
I am a scared atheist.
Okay.
It's a joke. So I'm actually agnostic, right?
Hmm.
I'm not a big believer of organized religion. I don't feel like they're on a path that truly gets what is happening.
Hmm.
Um, very close-minded. But and then on the other side, atheists are. I feel the same way, right? Um, like you can't know. One, you can't know. So you should
Hmm.
always, until proven otherwise, have uh, an open mind that there is something out there. Um, doesn't have to be a God who loves us or creates us or even has any idea that we're here, right? My idea is more of there is something beyond us. Uh, we may call it a supernatural. We may call it a higher intelligence, whatever it is. I don't know. Uh, Plus, I don't really think it matters the way I believe if it's one or the other. Um,
Yeah, because I guess if you're a deist and you think that there may be a supernatural higher power out there that doesn't really interact, then it kind of doesn't matter. It's really the discussion is really
yeah,
just academic at that point. It has
right.
nothing to do with like afterlives or salvation or well, I don't know. Maybe I should ask. Do you believe in like life after death or anything like that?
I believe that it's not life as we know it. It's not like I'm going to pass and I'm going to wake up on a golf course and have the best game of my life
That would be your
ever,
heaven, right?
in eternity. No, it would be hell, right? If I just always played really good, it would suck after a
Mm.
while. I like having that challenge of hitting bad shots or hitting out of a trouble area, or always getting a double bogey until that one day you get two under, right? And you're just like, fuck yeah.
In case you guys
Um,
haven't noticed, Chuck here is a huge golfer, huge
Avid
golf
golfer.
fanatic.
Yep. So retired, and I used to play softball a lot. Um, got hurt too many times, getting too old, too fat, and golf was like the perfect transition for me to still stay active and actually be good at something.
That's the
Uh,
proof that it's not a real sport, by the way.
but no, that's
Just
just for
throwing that
common
out there.
folks, right? Um, it is a real sport because it's really hard. Um, and I consider myself to actually be a pretty good golfer. Uh,
This could
but
very easily devolve into us arguing about golf for the next
okay,
hour.
yeah, we'll say that.
So we're
Anyways,
gonna get
okay.
rid of that. We're gonna go back to the
All right,
show. But
so
before oh go ahead, I'm sorry.
my belief. So I
Yeah.
do believe that um, there is a meaning.
Hmm.
Um, I still haven't landed on exactly what that is. I still kind of am looking at nature, getting super excited about the James Webb Space Telescope going up here soon, because that will help our understanding of what is actually going on. And the more knowledge we have, right, the closer we can get to something that makes sense for you. Because I feel like my belief is very personal. Um, a lot of people are not going to care for it, but that's me. That's what makes me feel, I don't know, good inside, good about myself, knowing that we're not just, it's not just dust in the wind. There is a purpose for why everything's going on.
Okay. So before we get into the next question, and I do want to revisit some of that later
Hmm.
on, but I do want to take this opportunity to say hello to the chat. It looks like the chat is pretty active. And the first person I'd like to acknowledge is Donna, Miss Donna Bajero. I think I said that correctly. If not, I said it in the most stylish way. Thank you, Donna, for joining us. We always love you gracing us with your presence. We also have Aunt Kathy as well, a regular. JG is joining us. Who is what now? I imagine I imagine he's responding to the title Charlie the Deist, which is like,
The anti hippie, I like that
who
one.
is
Thanks, Jay.
Charlie and what's a deist? So yeah, who else do we have? We have Scapegoat Iscariot. That's a reference to Judas, in case you didn't know. That's from the Bible. Oh, guess who else is in the chat? I he has his name on here, so I guess it's okay for me to say, but some guy named Joseph Wigan. I don't know. Have you heard of this guy?
Terrible human being. Yeah, terrible.
Terrible human being.
That's my brother. He's a really good dude.
He is a mutual. I wasn't gonna say that because he has his last name in here, so now everybody knows your last name. So thanks, Joe, for doxing Charlie. But glad you could join us. We've got Snowman. What's up, Chuck? And if I'm not mistaken, I'm guessing Snowman is a mutual acquaintance of both of ours as well.
I
Can you
think
guess
so.
who that might be?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Can I say his name? Or no?
No, because he
Snowman. Didn't. How's it going up north, buddy?
Yeah, so we have a lot of friends in the chat, and I have Kat the Humanist as well, who is kind of an associate producer for me on this show and on my other show, and she's great. So thank you guys for joining us. All right, back to the show. So we talked about your kind of theological beliefs. Mm-hmm. I know your family as well. Speaking of, you have a family member in the chat right now, but a couple of your family members are religious. Overall, I wouldn't say that you come from a particularly religious family, would you?
No, far from it. So Jennifer found her religion, I think, later in life. My dad used to take us to a Unitarian church when we were younger, but that didn't really stick, and we didn't really do it much. No church growing up, no teachings of religion in my household, at least that I could remember. Going to church with my dad, me and my brother was the only time I can remember actually going to a physical church. And a Unitarian church was kind of weird.
That's barely religion.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, let's play the spiritual, power, if he or she is even listening, right?
Yeah.
It was so it was just kind of like we're going to try to incorporate all religions, don't offend anybody, but keep it as vague as possible.
Right.
And it was pretty much just teaching us.
It's the most accepting religion.
It really is. Someone was kind of upset about the hippie comment I made. It's a very hippie religion, right? If you look at Christianity as a whole, right? They're like the most liberal, to my knowledge. I'm not saying that's a fact. To my knowledge, it just seemed super liberal and vague in what they were actually trying to teach.
Yeah. There's Snowman right now. There's I'm just highlighting some of our mutual acquaintances. So we're speaking of hippies. You grew up in the Bay Area. You kind of mentioned. So is that would you say that your upbringing, as far as like what you were taught, is that typical of that region? I mean, I have my suspicions. I'm sure most people have theirs.
No. The Bay Area, like most major cities, is just kind of like a melting pot. They were a super liberal city. Like I remember the Marines were going to open up a recruiting station, and they protested that. Then the state or the federal government was going to cut funding to the state for it, and the state was going to cut funding for Berkeley for it. And they quickly changed their tune. I was like, welcome, folks. And they planted trees out in front of the place, right? It is.
That sounds like a very Bay Area thing.
It is a very Bay. Like, hey, you know what? We're going to lose some money. We're wrong. Here's some trees.
Yeah. So let me ask you, growing up, you grew up in the Bay Area. It's a very liberal area. Would you identify yourself as politically liberal or socially liberal? I don't know how you would say it.
I mean, I have been called the extreme liberal, right?
Well, you're not.
I am not, though, right? So,
it's all relative, though, right?
That's true, right?
There's a lot of people who would probably say that, but I see Joe in the chat right now. I would call him more of an extreme liberal. He has a degree in liberal studies. So
Oh, Joe, yeah, Joe's super liberal, right?
you
So
don't get more liberal than that, right?
no,
But like he's definitely to the left of you.
yeah, okay, yeah, completely. I would say I'm what did I used to call myself? A fascist socialist.
That seems like a contradiction.
It is, right? It would be a
That's like an
socialist state
oxymoron.
where I ruled the world. Now, so I would probably lean closer to I I'm a socialist, right?
Guess who else is in the chat?
Neil the atheist.
No, can you see the screen right now?
Oh, hey, Maria's here. My sister's here too. Yeah,
So
Joe's
your whole family apparently is watching.
nice. My fan club. Yeah. So I'm a definite socialist, and I wasn't always a socialist, but for real, the military turned me into a socialist because for those who don't know, the military operates like a socialist state, right?
Hmm.
You don't have to pay for Medicare. You don't have to pay for dental. You don't have to pay for housing, right? They give you. I mean, you paid rent, but they gave you money for housing, right?
I don't pay rent.
Well, you don't. I did, right? So I didn't live on base.
Well, I say that because I'm married to an active duty military person.
Yes.
And so therefore, by extension, I don't pay rent. Now.
Right. So, and it's funny, you know, a lot of I've met a lot of extreme left and right in the military, but what they don't really understand is they love the military and how we did things.
Mm-hmm.
That's a total socialist state. The military is a socialist organization.
Yeah.
In terms of just way of life, right? I mean, the jobs are
well, not just in
normal
terms
and
of
that, but
way of life. I think I talked about this on my last show. Or no, it actually wasn't my show. It was over on Jenna Meader's show. But we were talking for Veterans Day. I indicated that the military is very religious in a lot of ways.
yes,
I have found that to be the case both before I became, what I am now and afterwards. So you would agree with me, I presume?
oh yeah, I mean, just look at when we worked at test pod school, right? We had overwhelming number of Christians and surprisingly enough, Mormons, which was kind of confusing to me at first. But I mean, they would do Bible studies, you know, in a room where they would go and brief about their flights. They would, have an hour and a half long Bible study in there.
Yeah.
A lot of praying and special functions. They always have the chaplain come out like that and
how did you feel
give
about
words
that?
and stuff. I'm a socialist, democratic American. You do whatever the hell makes you feel good. I'll be there. I'm not going to pray.
So it didn't bother you that they were doing that. It just kind of something you ignored and like didn't really pay attention to.
Yeah, I think it used to bother me until I just started kind of like didn't care. Like it's you know what I mean. Like I think I have beaten those words like I'm doing this so people can have freedom, right? Then you let them have their freedom. If they want to have somebody give some words there, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I stood there. I never bowed my head or closed my eyes or anything. And no one ever jumped on me for that, right? So I'm just like, all right, I can give up 5 minutes of my life so that this guy can make a few people feel good for what they believe in. So yeah, I'm still okay with it.
And just to acknowledge a couple other people here in the chat. I see Techies, I can't pronounce your name, dude, but I see you and I see your question, and I will come back to that later. It's a question about your beliefs again. We also have Neil, the 604 atheist. What's going on, bud? Bill Castle joined us. So cool. So we have a pretty active chat here. We've got you were talking to me a little bit before the show. You were wondering how many people were going to be watching, like you were nervous about how exposed this is going to be. It's only 20 people watching right now, so
that's
I would say that's a slightly above average, but right around that mark, and you're going to get a lot more on the rerun. So yeah, no pressure.
All right, none felt.
So your life in the military, we talked about the religious aspect of it. I guess I should ask you, what is your recollection of when we first met? Because you said at the beginning that you weren't sure exactly how long we've known each other. How long do you think we've known each other?
Well, let's see. You picked me up at the gate or on base to show me around my first day. So we've known
Yeah.
each other.
And just to be clear, not your first day in the military, but
No,
your
yeah,
first
just
day.
my first day. I got to Edwards Air Force Base. So I came
Right.
from Germany. He was not my sponsor, but he went along with him. Let's see. I got to the States. I think it was the 16th of September ish.
Oh, that's way too much detail. You
Right.
don't
So
need to be
sorry.
that
So
specific.
September of 2008 is when I first met Bryce, and we met at we had lunch at a Taco Bell after 3 minutes of meeting.
Yeah. So I was going to say a little over 13 years, right?
Hmm.
So what was your impression of me when you first met me?
Who's this kid? No, I don't know. I felt like we clicked. We hit it off fairly quick.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, yeah, I think we both kind of nerded out. And we got into we enjoyed our debates with each other and some of the idiots that we used to work with.
Mhm.
Um,
Let
so
me
yeah,
let
I
me
would
do
say
this.
I liked you. So if you want me to give up my point of view on you and your religious beliefs, I can go into that too.
Uh, we will do that. That's going to be the next question. I see a Miss Jennifer Wee in here, and that name sounds very familiar to me.
Yes,
I would almost imagine that's another one of your siblings. So you've got
it
you've got
is.
you've
That
got a
is.
large family and lots of
Yes,
brothers
I
and
have
sisters.
4 sisters and 2 brothers.
Yeah, and
And
almost all of half of them are in the chat here. So
yeah, and the same amount of nephews and nieces, right? So
yeah.
we're spread like rabbits.
So, so we met in 2008.
Uh-huh.
2008 was definitely before the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yes.
Now, which would have meant that I would have necessarily been in the closet at that point in
Hmm.
time. This I don't know if you know this. Certainly, no one else watching knows this, but you are actually the very first person that I ever came out to.
Was I really the first?
You were the first.
Holy cow! I did
So
not know
yeah,
that.
I wasn't sure if you knew that or not, but
No, that makes me feel even more special.
so you're
I
you're
thought you were.
definitely
Yeah. Wow.
you're definitely the first, but there's a specific reason why it was you, and it's because you wanted to be roommates,
Yes. I
right?
and yeah. So when was this? This was probably back in
Oh 9.
2009. Yeah. So
Mhm.
right before I got to test pod school. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we hung out, we did the New Year's thing, we'd see movies, right? And so, yeah, I remember we were at Sharky's.
I don't remember where, but
I remember we were at Sharky's Woodfire Mexican Grill, and I was like, "Hey, dude, um, I'm kind of like I was losing money at the house I was in, um, but I said, "Hey, do you want to try to maybe find a place and be roommates?" And you said, yes, but before I do, there's something I want you to know. And then he came out to me, told me he was gay, and I was just like, all right.
yeah. Now this was kind of that's your, very simplistic telling of the story. And I'm sure from your point of view it would have seemed like that, but
Hmm.
for me, this was huge for a couple of
Oh yeah,
reasons. I already mentioned that I'd never told anyone that before. And also, again, 2009, we're
yes,
still under don't tell ask, don't tell. So
yeah.
this could be
There's great
career
risk of
ending.
him telling me that, even
Yeah,
if in a personal matter, because under the law back then was you can say shit to anybody anywhere, anytime.
right.
You'd have
Not
to
only
stay
could
in
you
the
not
closet
say
the entire time.
anything, you couldn't say anything if you were. Other people couldn't ask. But even
Hmm.
if there was no asking and no telling, even if it had just been found out, like by accident, if you were outed, that would be the end of your career too.
Yes.
Like it's literally happened to people. So it was kind of a but at that point I felt like I knew you enough. I trusted you enough. And
You fool.
yeah, so that was just kind of me like rolling the dice and I needed to, I guess, kind of get it off my chest at the
Yeah.
time too.
Yeah. You hit
Um,
Yahtzee.
yeah, so it was, and obviously you being from the Bay Area, is he really going to care?
Yeah,
Um,
I felt like at that time you knew my political views. You
mhm,
knew how I felt about anybody, no matter what label we put on them.
yeah.
Plus, I came from the Bay Area, right, where it's nothing new to me from me there.
Did you
Yeah, it
have
was.
did you have many LGBTQ friends growing up or around?
I mean, yeah, it was the San Francisco Bay Area, right? So,
Well, no, I know that, but I
my
mean, I guess like
like
actual
my
people you
sister
interacted with.
Lisa, my second oldest sister, one of her best friend Teely was gay. Her old roommate that I actually used to stay with them became a lesbian. I had
Became a
lesbians in high
lesbian or
school.
came out as a lesbian?
Came out as a lesbian. She was dating. She was living with a guy at the time.
Okay.
And I think that just whatever happened, she just kind of
Mhm.
changed paths, right?
Let me
Uh,
say it this way. I don't know this person you're talking about, but I know I've heard this story a lot and I've actually lived a version of this story. And my assumption would be she was living with a guy trying to become something that she actually wasn't, and
yeah,
then realized it wasn't working for her, and then ended up being what she was going to be regardless.
it
And
was probably
I don't know that. I don't know the person, but I'm just saying like that's kind of, because it's not like I haven't lived
it's a
with
good
women
assumption, right?
before.
It's a good assumption because I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of people's lives, right? I
I
can't say
could
that
be,
for her case, just because I'm not sure what made her.
yeah. I'm maybe I'm not the best person because I'm actually bisexual. So, maybe that makes me unqualified, but that's my suggestion. Just that's what I imagine knowing the people in the LGBT community and hearing so many versions of the story. I
Yeah,
imagine it's quite similar to that. So yeah, you had this basically you had that kind of in the background. It was never really a big deal. You didn't grow up in a religious family. There
mhm,
nobody really seemed uptight about it. So you were totally cool with having a gay roommate,
yeah.
which worked out
I didn't
in.
even look at it like that. I just saw like one of my. You were like at the time, like we were really good friends.
Mhm.
Um, that's why I felt like I shrugged it off and just like, yeah, whatever. But do you still want to like find a place together?
Let's
Um,
let's uh let's go down. Speaking of really good friends, let's go down memory lane a bit. Here's another picture I found
oh,
of
good
us
lord, yeah,
from.
San Francisco, yeah,
I think this is 2010.
yeah. We met Annie Wiley up there.
Yep. It's
Um,
Alcatraz in the background.
yeah.
Oh gosh, here's a blast from the past.
Oh man, that was dangerous territory right there. We were
That's
wearing Giants gear at a Dodgers game. Was that the game where the usher kept coming down and asking if I was okay?
probably in
Uh,
that gear, and I have no hair in that picture, like
yeah, you're
none.
completely bald. You look 50 years younger.
Uh, there or here,
There,
I looked like a young. If I look 50 years younger there, then I look like a
you're like a
fetus.
fetus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Um,
did. You look like a fetus in that picture.
I have. Here's some. We talked about the military. You remember some of these guys?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had to block
Sherman
that
Curl in
everybody.
the middle was our
Yeah,
boss.
our fearless commander.
Fearless Commander. He's got a great story. If you can get him on the show, he's got so many good tales of his time.
Dude,
Um,
hook me up with him if you can get a
yeah,
hold
if
of
you
him.
guys
I haven't
want to talk
talked to him
to
in
a
years.
test pilot who is also religious, he's a funny mix too. His mom's Christian, his dad's Mormon, and he grew up with both.
I didn't even know that
Oh
about
yeah,
him.
they were
Um,
from Utah.
Here's another connection that we have. A lot of people know. Well, this was on my Facebook page. This is my dog, Winnie. I took this picture like 3 or 4 days ago. It might have been a week ago. But here's a picture as I was Facebook stalking. That's you and Winnie when
Yeah,
she's just a little puppy.
that was 2000 it was probably 2007, probably the summer
Yeah,
of 2007 right there. We were living in Germany together.
yeah. And so you've had her for a number of years. I
Uh-huh.
stole this picture too.
Yeah, she's my little
So
sweet.
so that was 2007. I mentioned that I took this picture a couple of days
Yeah,
ago. Winnie's
she's like you.
14 years old.
She doesn't age. She's like you.
She's 14 years old. We just went for a run today. I ended up adopting her. Gosh, what I don't even remember what year. I've had her for at
That's
least 7 or 8 years. So
oh, it was during my first marriage. It would have been probably like 2011, 12.
I had to put this picture up just for shits and giggles, just since I got
Look at you, stud.
all the fancy pictures of you, being a fighter pilot.
Yeah,
I believe you took this picture.
I did, most likely, if it was at it is at Test Pod School, so I
Yeah,
took that picture.
and here is this may throw the audience off a bit, but this is not what it appears to be. This is a picture of us getting battle hardened and gearing up and getting ready to deploy for war, right?
No.
No. What is this? What are we looking at here?
So this was the waiting area for all the extras on Man of Steel that me and Bryce got picked up to play in.
That's right.
Bryce got picked up to play a gun-wielding army dude, and I was the fat airman.
Yeah, you've lost weight since then.
Yeah, so we did this movie together. It was 2 days for me.
By the way, Man of Steel, it is actually the Man of Steel, the DC.
Yeah, the one with Harry.
We were both in that.
What's his name? Carvel or whatever. Yeah, Cavill. And we got picked up to play extras on a minimum wage, right?
You can see the back of our heads for like at least 10 seconds.
Yeah. And well, you can see my fat ass taking a knee when they do the flyover when like the aliens first show up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did that movie. We're super excited. We got picked up. The first day was just several hours, not 7, of just standing and then kneeling and then standing and kneeling. So in that picture, I'm super fat and I have arthritis, taking the knee. So after the first day, I was just like done. My knees swelled up, and I told Bryce, I'm like, man, if we're doing that again, I'm fucking quitting. And sure enough, the next day we come back and we do it again. It's just that, right? And then they don't have food for us. Remember, we did it
the
for
first
like
day they did. The
first day they gave us like awesome food. The second day we go out there, we do this for like, and it's super hot, sweating, and like you don't see kneeling and standing as this really kind of hard chore to do. But when you're doing it all day in the sun, it sucked. So yeah, I walked up to the casting lady and I said, I fucking quit. I can't do this anymore. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can find another fat dude to stand and kneel all day.
The only issue that I really had with that shot, because I actually did the full 3 days. I did the full 3 days, and because I wanted to be like, one is Superman, right?
Yeah, it's your thing.
That's kind of my thing, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna be in a Superman movie, and maybe I can get my face. Maybe if I stay long enough, they'll actually do a pan where you can see my face. They didn't, of course. There is a still shot I found where I'm way in the background and I can see it, but it's not in the movie, which sucks. So, but yeah, we shot this scene for 3 days, and it's just the one scene where we're in the desert. They're like repeating the same lines over and over again.
And over again. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And I remember the director, was it Zack Snyder?
No, it was some other,
or was it the assistant director?
There. Yeah, it was like an assistant director to do.
They kept saying, they kept getting pissed off because we're on an Air Force base. We're on Edwards when we're shooting this scene outside, and there's planes taking off, and every time a plane takes off, cut, like they have to redo the whole thing, and they're like getting pissed. I'm like, well, whose idea was it to shoot a movie on an
Air Force base? On an Air Force base. That's a real thing. It's
we had to
don't
shoot
fly
it.
Your Cessnas.
The other thing was because it takes so long, and because they have to keep doing that. If you don't get everything right in time, the lighting changes. Right. I learned a lot about movie making doing this, and so as the sun is shifting to a different position, if you can't get it all done in time, you kind of have to give up and do it the next day, because you'll start to have continuity errors where the lighting from one shot is not going to match. But yeah, it was just but it was definitely fun. Did you interact with any of the stars?
Just Amy Adams, which I almost had a heart attack. So she was actually walking right to the right of me behind, and I look over and I saw her and I just smiled, right? My face, I'm sure, just exploded in red. I'm not sure if you were with me. And she's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good." um,
Giggling like a little school
yeah, I
girl.
was. I was just like, not so much starstruck, but I'm just like, gosh, she's this
I,
hot redhead.
I was not starstruck by anyone there. And partly it was because I didn't know any of those assholes, right?
Yeah,
I'm calling them assholes. I'm sure they're very nice people, but at the time, to me, who the hell are these assholes, right? So I didn't know who Henry Cavill was. I wasn't really a huge, really knowledgeable of Amy Adams. The only person I recognized on the set with us was Richard Schiff, who's like a minor. He played the doctor,
yeah,
um, but and you've seen him in like a dozen movies. He's like a
oh yeah.
character actor, but I couldn't remember his name, so I couldn't go up to him and say anything. Like, because what was I supposed to do? Hey, I know you, but I don't know what to call you. Uh, So yeah, so I didn't even recognize Christopher Maloney, but I didn't watch
No,
that
I
show
didn't.
he was
Yeah,
on. He was in the same uniform we were in, so I just thought he was one of us until he started speaking lines. I was like, oh, that guy's an actor, right?
yeah,
So fun times, fun
yeah.
times.
That's good. That's. I
So I
actually applied for another movie and didn't get it. I was auditioned for Captain
wait,
Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Oh yeah, they did shoot that while
Uh
we were there. Um, do we know anybody who's in that movie? No, we know
huh.
Iron Man. You had a friend who was in Iron Man, right? You were in Iron
Yeah,
Man, weren't you?
Nugget.
Iron Man 3?
No,
You weren't in that?
no. Lieutenant uh,
Don't say his name.
Nguyen. Oh, sorry. So
No, you
Nugget
didn't say his
is what
first
we used
name.
to
That
call
was
him.
fine.
So
Yeah.
yeah, he was one of my baby lieutenants at Test Pilot School, and he was in
Yeah.
Iron
Oh,
Man 2.
hold on. Let me go back to this picture because there's Jordan in the background
Oh yeah,
behind
right here.
me, and he was in Transformers 2.
He got a great headshot in Transformers 2. It was
Yeah, I don't know where
uh,
I was that when they shot that, but somehow he got to be an extra in Transformers 2,
yeah.
and you can actually see his face.
And it's funny because he was just playing himself because he was just sitting in front of a computer all day. But he turns
Yeah,
around in
his
shock
real
when the
job.
guy starts yelling at Optimus Prime. Yeah.
Yeah. So fun times we had in the military. Okay, let's transition now to because I do have a couple more questions. You have an interest in astronomy and physics.
Love it. Yeah.
You kind of always have, I
Yeah.
imagine, at least ever since
Yeah.
I've known you.
Don't understand the math. I actually tried to go to school for astrophysics. The math was just a little bit too far beyond my ability to understand it.
Mhm.
I did enough to pass the class, but I changed my degree only because I'm like, this is some, to be an astrophysicist, you have to breathe math, right? And I'm not breathing math. So
Right. So you have the science part and the astronomy
I
part.
have I have the regurgitated knowledge from TV shows, right? Or books that are made for us
I
or
feel like you have more
feeble-minded
than
people.
that because I feel like I have a lot of astronomy knowledge, but I feel like I've learned a lot of it from you. Like I was always
Yes.
into astronomy myself and I knew things, but you have actually taught me a lot more about astronomy
I'm
than
an avid hobbyist of astronomy, right?
yeah.
I think that goes into the whole religious belief I have,
Mhm.
right? Because I feel like the answer is through the information that's out there, right? And physics and mathematics and astronomy, all these things are looking for these answers, right?
Mhm.
So I think
Quick
that's why I
question
was always
here.
drawn to it.
Quick question here from Lisa. How many movies were filmed at Edwards while you were
Oh,
there?
let's see. We had Superman, um, Captain Marvel,
Iron Man 3,
Iron
Transformers
Man
2.
3s, Transformers 2. I mean, while I was there, I wasn't there for Transformers 2.
When did
Uh,
Transformers 2 come out?
I don't know when it came out, but I think they
Uh,
filmed it before I showed
Before
up.
you got there?
Yeah, because I
Maybe
would have
that's
went with you
why
guys.
yeah, maybe that's why I'm not in it. It might have been because Jordan was in it, but he was
Yeah,
there before us, so
so
that
maybe
makes
it was,
sense.
and you were there. You got to base shortly before I did, right? So
Yeah.
I think it was before that. So yeah, those movies, not
Didn't you meet
Transformers 2.
Tyrese, though? I felt like somebody met Tyrese.
That wasn't me,
It must have been Jordan.
because I probably would have picked a fight with him.
He
think
said
he's a
he
terrible
Jordan.
actor.
I believe it was Jordan who met Tyrese.
It probably was.
He said he was a dick.
Yeah, I probably would have picked a
He
fighter
said
though.
Josh Duhamel was amazing, but Tyrese was a
He
dick.
looks fun, dude. Like I totally would hang out with him. And
Yeah. So where was I? We were talking about astronomy and
yeah,
physics. So yeah, you were saying that was that kind of. Now, did your interest in astronomy spark your uh kind of how you formulated your religious
yes, absolutely.
ideology?
Uh huh.
Okay.
Yeah. So and science in general, right? So um, avid like watcher of documentary films, and I know those kind of like take things and just show you what they wanted you to see.
Hmm.
Um, but and reading books and stuff like that, I think that really kind of fueled the because I was never religious, um,
Right.
but
Yeah, I
I've
should have said theological.
yeah,
I know I
so
said religious,
I
but
was never religious growing up. I didn't have any beliefs at all. Like it's just like, oh, light goes out and that's it, right? I felt like I believed that through my own ignorance because I
mhm.
was never kind of shown the different options. Um, but yeah, science and astronomy has definitely fueled my idea of uh, uh, being an agnostic, right?
Okay. So now I saw this question earlier. I skipped over it because I wanted to come back to it when I transitioned back to this topic, but I'm just
Mm.
going to call him Tech. But he asked a question here, and this is a common question that atheists tend to ask believers of anything. And I first heard Matt Dillahunty from the Atheist Experience ask this question. I'm sure that's where a lot of people are getting it, but he probably stole it from somebody before that. But basically, the point of the question is, are you searching for what is true, or do you already have an idea of what is, well, I guess maybe the better way to ask it would be, do you believe what you believe because they make you feel good, or because you actually think it's true?
Oh, that's a better way of saying that. I'd be lying if I said that it doesn't make me feel good, right?
Mhm.
It does make me feel good. Um,
There's no wrong answer to this, by the
right?
way.
Um, it does make me feel good, what I believe, right?
Do you think that's true for
But
most religious people? Like people who are in any religion, do you think that they're in it because it's kind of a like a
no,
feel?
I would say any answer I would give would just be a generalized answer because I would say it's probably a fair split if people care or don't care, right? Some people are like, it's tradition.
Mhm.
More people care about traditions than they care about how does it make me feel. It's just like this is something we've done all the time, right?
Right.
Um,
So it's, yeah, I
so
think it's
that's a tough question to answer for a, a big population of people. I have no idea who they are.
right. Yeah.
Um,
And I should
s-
have yeah, I recognize it's I mean, look, this is all opinionated, right?
right?
It's all based on your own anecdotal experience. Mine is religious people are just are this the variety, the diversity is so much so that there's certainly probably great multitudes of people who believe in something just because it kind of gives them a warm and fuzzy. There's other people who've been indoctrinated into it since
Yeah,
birth and it's the only thing they know, so
yeah.
they
Some are
absolutely
based on
believe it's
fear,
true.
right? Like
Some is based
some
on
are
fear. Yep.
right. So it's you can't. That's a hard question to say on 50 different things
Right.
that are similar, and the central idea of the guy asking the question is all you believe in a fairy tale, does it make sense or not, right? Or does it make you feel good or whatever, right? Like those
Mhm.
are questions that normally people would ask who are not part of that group. But it's a hard question to ask somebody to give an answer on every religion and how do they feel. Even if you just break it down, like what about Catholics? And just like, well, yeah,
I have a comment here from your brother who is basically claiming that he taught you everything you know about
I,
astronomy.
he may have started me on that, um, but what I will say, Joe, is that I remember driving up to Klamath Falls with Dad and you as kids, and I remember just we would always leave after he got off work. It was super late, and I remember always looking up into the sky when we're in the mountains, right, and no light pollution, and just seeing thousands of stars and seeing the Milky Way, right? I was always interested in that. I just didn't really, I think, made that uh, a priority in my life until later. And Joey is probably somebody that helped spark that. I do remember him being um, into astronomy younger, so yeah, he probably helped spark that love. I think I've surpassed him, but
So I'm expecting his next. I'm anticipating what his next comment is going to be. Um, Joe Wiggin, my other best friend. He's Joe and I were roommates. For Have you ever been roommates with him?
who? My brother?
Yeah, in your adult life.
No, not as adults.
Yeah, see, I have. So, like, in some ways, I feel like I know both of you better than you know each other.
You probably do, yeah.
Joe does not like to be called Joey,
No, he does not.
in case you didn't know that. So,
If I said that, Joe, I'm sorry. I've been really trying to be
yeah.
conscious of not calling you that.
Um, so okay, so we talked about science. Let's talk a little bit about science fiction, because
Nice.
this is the other thing I think that binds us together. We have kind of a mutual interest,
Hmm.
always have, in the sci-fi, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, what is your sci-fi of choice?
All right. It comes down to the question: Star Wars or Star Trek, right?
Fair enough.
I am Star Trek. Only because it's less fantasy-ish. Although they do have the godlike aliens and shit that can do whatever they want. Um, it's
Sorry,
about
I'm highlighting this
yeah.
because
It's
Marie, hold on. You can't see the screen yet, but Marie just commented with really question mark, and I'm sure this is a response to Joe does not like to be called Joey. So this is your sister, by the way.
oh,
So
hi Maria.
yeah, I know you guys all better than y'all.
Yeah, you know my
You know
entire family. I
yourself.
mean, you've done Thanksgiving with us like more times than I can count.
Okay, Star Trek.
All right,
Sorry.
so yeah, I'm more a Star Trek science fiction than a Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, I like Star Wars, um, but I really like Star Trek. Right?
It's not a one or the other. Was that in your
Yeah.
help? Oh, you guys
Sorry.
having an earthquake?
Yeah, it's not a one or the other, but I love Star Trek. I love the science fiction that gets close to being real. Right?
Hmm.
I do enjoy, like the Marvel movies. I enjoy that. I would say if I had to pick my favorite Marvel movie, and we've had several debates on this, mine would
We
be,
have. I already know what it is.
what is it?
It's Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was my favorite Marvel movie.
yeah, because it's the most realistic. It's the one that touches on
It was
reality
just,
more than some of the other ones, right?
well, not so much that. It was just that it was fucking fun, right? It's Thor Ragnarok too, right? Thor is like the exact opposite of the Winter Soldier, where it's all fantasy and flying and magic and stuff like that. I really liked Ragnarok too. It was just fun to watch, right? It was witty.
Hmm.
Uh, Captain America was, I think, less witty than the Thor Ragnarok, but it's just a fun movie. I love science fiction. Um,
Yeah,
and I loved how we would just always watch hours of Star Trek or something like that at the house. I
yeah.
finished the Star Trek marathon of the Next Generation not too long ago too.
You just now finished Star Trek: The Next Generation?
About
You're
like a month ago.
you're a little behind the times.
Well, it's my third time going through it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that show I'm pretty sure was popular when we were kids. But I kid, of course. I watch Star Trek all the time, even like the old one from the 60s. So um yeah. Anyway, so while we are getting up to the hour, I don't know if you realize that an hour has
Oh, it flew by.
passed this quickly, but I do have one more question, and this one is more of kind of a treat, I guess. Well, I don't know if maybe that sounds maybe that's narcissistic. I don't know if it'll be a treat or not. It could be a nightmare. But this is for the audience,
Okay.
nonetheless. We just went through how we know each other so well. Let me actually show one more picture This is from your wedding.
Yeah, it was my best man at my
I
wedding too.
was the best man at your wedding. So just in case people still don't believe us after all this time, yeah. But what is your impression of me, both when you first met me through our time in the military to now? And you can, this is your opportunity for story time because you know me better than
Yeah. Okay.
anyone except my mom and my sister. What are, how has your
I,
perspective about me changed? What are some things about me that you think other people might
I,
not
I,
know or would find interesting?
I think I always thought you were super smart. Um, I remember you had like several different Bibles at
Oh,
the
yeah, that's right.
house.
Actually, we
Yeah.
do need to touch on that. So I was very religious when you first met me.
Yes.
I
Uber
I was
religious,
I
right?
was
Like,
more religious than you are. You're not religious really at all. You
no.
have a deistic belief, but I certainly had a God belief.
Yeah.
So and then I went kind of jumped over to the opposite side of you. So
Right. So it was funny. Like I couldn't pinpoint. I don't remember what your religion was. If it was
I
Jehovah
mean, it was
Witness or something.
no, it was just unspecific.
Right.
It was Christianity. I was a non-Trinitarian Christian, so I didn't believe in like the Father, Son,
The Holy Spirit.
the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit,
The
Trinity, only
yeah.
because it logically never made any sense to me.
Right.
One and two, I didn't think that that was a necessary. Just reading in scripture, it didn't appear to be necessary or foundational. That seemed to be something that was a created doctrine, that people just started believing and incorporating. So it never made sense to me. So I never bought into that. But everything else in the Bible, for the most part, I believe.
You
So
did.
just
Yeah.
just
So,
non-denominational Christian, but not like the super far
but
right
Christian, right? So
fundamentalist.
that's what I kind of had in you, and we would talk about it, and you would debate people about it, and then it got to the point where you were going on chat and talking to people, and
I was a huge Christian apologist at the
right
time. So
at
yeah.
the time. So, which was it didn't bother me, right? I just thought
Mhm.
you were confusing to me because I've never seen someone so committed to not just one type of religion, but trying to find answer in all the different Bibles, the mainstream Bibles
Yeah,
that you can
I
get.
still have a bunch. They're all on they're too far away from me. Otherwise, I would grab them. But I have, yeah, several different translations of the Bible in English. There's a Book of Mormon up there. There's a Jehovah's Witness Bible and a Quran. So, and also a bunch of religion books on religion written by various theists, Christians, atheists, etc. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
So
something that I was definitely very much
yeah,
into.
super in, right? And then he would even ask my
Whoops.
perspective, knowing that I had no clue what was in the Bible
I
on
actually
a
didn't know
certain.
that, but I mean,
Oh
I
well,
guess I
if you
found
did or
out
not,
through the course of speaking to you.
right? And I think you even asked me if I've read a Bible. I was like, yeah, I maybe flipped through that little one that gave a basic training. Um,
Right, the one that everybody in the military
that
gets.
everyone that yeah, right, like when I'm outside cold, wet, shivering, yeah, I'm going to open up the Bible,
Mhm.
um, start a fire with it. So I thought you were. I knew you were religious. I thought you were too smart to be stuck in like that loop. And it was
Mhm.
weird because you were always like this passage says this and this one, the Torah says this and this one, the Quran, the Baptist Bible, blah blah blah. And you would look at the same thing and analyze it. And I always got the perspective that you have that scientist mind, and I was dumbfounded how you were still like into the religion
Religious?
thing. Yeah. Um, just because it seemed like you were always looking at stuff and contradicting the different Bibles together, right? So,
Mhm.
and I wasn't sure when you were doing that, are you looking for the right answer or are you just looking at the flaws
And
of
what's
each of
funny
these?
about that statement is neither was I. I'm more sure now of what I was doing then, and what I was doing was I wasn't really looking for the answers because I was convinced that I already knew what the true answer was. I was looking for ways that I could argue to other people or evangelize to other people in a way that would be palatable or make sense to them, right? Because I already knew that God existed, that Jesus Christ died for my sins, and all this other stuff, but I knew that other people didn't know that. So I was trying to find ways to kind of counter the objections that people had,
Yeah.
including looking at science and looking at, well, this is a mistranslation. That's not, you're kind of looking at it out of context. So I was doing all of these things and really trying to reconcile a lot of the obvious problems with the Bible, that people have. They're legitimate objections, and some of them are, some of the arguments that atheists and non-religious people have against Christianity or religion or the Bible or whatever. Some of them are just bad arguments, and so it
Yeah.
was easy for me to kind of pick apart how bad those arguments were and to just try to make people think.
Yeah.
But
And my view on that is that a lot of people target the religious person more so than the actual
Hey, guess who
religion,
else is in the
right?
chat? You
Who?
know this guy? The answer is yes. You know him.
I know.
You just have to figure out who it is. You're related to him. It's your nephew, dude.
Oh, hi, uncle. There it is. Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, that should have gave it away. Hey, dude, let's go golfing. Yeah. So and there was a point where I was, I think, even attacking religion, and it's really young, right? Like teenage years. But I was, as I look back on it, I was attacking the person more so than the people, right? Because the people are flawed. You can say like every bad thing done in the name of religion was done by people, not so much of what the religion's message is trying to be.
Right. So
So I
yeah,
think atheists attack, I think, a lot of people and use that kind of circular argument of all the shitty shit that these people have done without actually looking at, well, this passage is stupid because it does this or that or whatever, right?
yeah. So a lot of my time spent in apologetics was basically, looking at the bad arguments that atheists were making and finding ways to answer them and counter them, and one, make those arguments look as stupid as they were, and to give a proper Christian argument that would seem like it made sense.
Yeah.
And but what I didn't realize, or what I didn't anticipate, was in order to do that, one of the reasons I have so many Bibles and I was always like in the Bible is because you kind of have to know your shit, so to
Yeah.
speak. You have to know what it says, and you have to have backup. You can't just make something up and be like, well, that's not what the Bible says. Either it says it or it doesn't, right? So I had to know what the Bible actually says so that I could craft a good apologetics argument to address some of these atheists. But the problem is, the more time you spend doing that, or the more time I spent doing that, the more problems I saw with it. And we talked about a lot of the bad arguments that atheists had that are easy to counter, but then I would encounter good arguments as well, or arguments that I hadn't heard before, or things that I needed an answer to that I was stuck on. And that's when I had to read the Bible even more and find out that there's no good answer to this, and that's kind of what really made me realize, one, I didn't, there are some things the Bible doesn't answer. There are some things that it answers incorrectly, which is a huge problem if you believe in biblical inerrancy, right? It definitely, because it gets stuff just wrong, scientifically wrong, historically wrong. And I was able to see some, and also morally wrong, which I kind of avoided. So I was inundated by all of these challenges, and I really had to, I started questioning. And at that point, that's when I realized that I transitioned from already knowing what the truth was to actually being in search of the truth. And when you read the Bible or any religious, book, while you are searching for the truth, you don't find the only truth that you find is that it's bullshit. When you read the Bible already knowing the truth, it reinforces the beliefs that you already have.
Right.
And that was the problem. That's why I was stuck in it for so long. Like, that's why you couldn't, it didn't make sense to you why, This is a smart guy, whatever that means.
Right.
Amen.
Scientific minded guy. You know, I feel like yeah, so that was kind of the transition for me happened pretty quickly. So yeah. So what else? Anything else you want to share about me or
Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought where I was going. So we talked about you're religious, smart.
they don't have to be complimentary. They can be you know, you can call me a
I'm
shitbag
thinking
or
about. I'm trying to think of that. You have a tiny little throat. You choke on
I
food.
have a tiny little. Okay, I'm glad you clarified. I'm glad you finished that part of the sentence. Technically, it's not wrong. I have a condition. You know,
He
I
does.
can't chug alcohol.
This
I can't
poor
chug anything
bastard.
actually. But
I don't know. So, like, just thinking of the random stuff, I'm trying to go back and see. I thought you were super analytical in everything. So, like that mind you took into like researching the Bible, you
well,
took
I am a little OCD.
everywhere, right? And he is OCD, and I used to do something to him at the
Yeah,
house,
I remember. No, I know what you're gonna
just
say
to
now.
kind of like see if he would see himself doing it. But then I got too scared to tell him that I was doing it and never brought it up. I would take his Star Trek coaster and I would take it out of the stack, right, and just put it somewhere on the table. And then he would come and sit on the couch. We get ready to watch them, and he would move it, put it back, right, and then he would sit back and get comfortable. And then he would do something, and then I would take it back out and I put it down, and then he would come back and then put it back out. And
So you
like,
would adjust the coasters on the
I would
table.
keep moving it out of the stack just to see if he would notice it. And after about and like a 3-hour period, I did that 4 times, and he kept putting it back. So then I was gonna say something to you at the moment, and then I got scared and didn't. And I was just like, just leave it alone. That's just who he is.
I
I don't
don't
want to hurt
remember
his
that.
feelings.
I remember you telling this story, but I had no conscious awareness that you were messing
Yeah, it
with
was
me
so weird.
that whole
Like
time.
I think I was scared to tell you because I didn't want to hurt your feelings, and I was super confused that you weren't saying, "Are you moving these fucking coasters?" It
Never
was
picked
just
up on it.
that natural thing. So he had that going. No, I would. I don't know if we've never gotten in a fucking fight. I mean,
I
we've
don't
had
think so.
arguments about topics, but I don't think we ever got in a fight. So it's hard to think of
Mm-mm.
like what are the things that are bad about Bryce. I mean, there's many, right? No one's perfect, but
I mean, I
uh,
guess you can use the whole I was stuck in this, you know, religious mindset for so long. Um, you know, and not that being religious is bad, but just
no.
kind of my, you know, my approach to I remember, do you remember we have another friend, Chuck, gay Chuck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to use his last name, but we'll just I think he's okay with me calling him Gay Chuck. But anyway, we got into it one time when I was like he said something about the Bible's bullshit or Jesus is not real or something like that. And I kind of this was at Jordan's house. And I kind of was like, well, you know, are you sure about that? Cuz you know, maybe you just don't know it, you know. And he's like, and he was really offended by it. We're really good friends, by the way. The person I'm talking about, my other friend Chuck, we're
Mhm.
close friends as well. But at the time, he got super pissed at me, and he's gay, and I was too. I mean, I'm bisexual, but I was in the closet at the time. But I don't know if he knew or not, but he was very like just he didn't understand how I could be LGBT and pro religious, certainly Christianity, and because he found the whole thing offensive, rightly so. But yeah, I remember us really getting into it, and we didn't speak after that for like a while. And then now that I'm not religious anymore, we're like close friends again. You know, we're not close friends, but we're friends again.
Mhm.
So it was interesting. The only time I feel like I've ever really gotten into it with people was over like religious type topics. And you know, yeah. So
I saw a question. When did you convert from being a believer to an atheist?
so So I've told this story a couple times, but you need to watch my show more often. Both the person who wrote the comment and you as well. I This would have been around 2016, 2017. It was when I was in Minot.
Might not. Okay.
Yeah, my last tour of duty, my last duty station, and that was when it wasn't really anything specific that happened. That was just kind of the time frame where basically I woke up one night and or I didn't sleep. I was just kind of sleepless one night, probably in one of my apologetics modes, trying to figure out how to reconcile this biblical contradiction. And I just realized what I was doing. I was trying to make the Bible work. You know, I was trying to make a contradiction not be a contradiction by figuring out how to reconcile it so that it would be true. But that means that you're not looking for the truth. If you're trying to make something true or find a way to explain it to yourself or to convince yourself about how it might be true because you want it to be true, you're not really looking for the truth. You should be, if people who are in search of the truth follow the evidence where it leads. You don't lead the evidence where you want it to go.
Yeah.
And it was like a light bulb when I realized that I was spending so much time leading the evidence where I wanted it to go, that means that I'm not really this is not rational. This is not how we do anything except maybe religion. Religion is the only thing where people, and it's because of that emotional component you talked about earlier. You're a deist. You believe that there's something out there. It kind of gives you a warm and fuzzy. People believe in things that they want to believe, and they will find ways to convince themselves that that's true just because, but is it an honest search for what is true? And so just touching back on that question that Tech asked earlier, applying it to me, I only want to believe true things, even if they suck. I only want to believe in true things. I don't want to believe in any false things, if even, if they make me feel good. One of the analogies I like to use is, remember that Bruno Mars song, Billionaire? See,
Oh, yeah.
I think it's like one of the first songs he came out. It's like, I want to be a billionaire. And, I say, I want to be a billionaire, and I can imagine in my head being a billionaire. But does that mean that I'm going to believe that I am one? Am I just going to choose to believe that I'm a billionaire because I want it to be true?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work, right? That doesn't make any sense. And if I went through life that way, I would probably end up in a loony. I was about to say loony bin, but that's not the right terminology. I would probably end up committed, right? So why would I do that with religion? That doesn't make any sense. Why would I just choose to believe in the Christian God of the Bible, conveniently the religion I was raised in, because that has to be the true and correct one, right? Of all of the thousands of religions in the world, throughout humankind, I just happen to find myself lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time to believe in the correct one. How arrogant and ridiculous is that?
Now, you made some really good points, and I know we're running out of time to talk about it, but
yeah, we can go. There's 22 people watching now, so as long as the numbers are going up, that's we don't have to cut it off.
So you have that epiphany, right? Of I'm trying to find the truth. Do you feel like you're doing that same thing with being an atheist, though? Like,
no, because the reason I don't is, so when I call myself an atheist, the only thing I mean by that is I'm not convinced that a God exists. So I'm not asserting that there are no gods. I'm actually an agnostic. I don't think that those two terms are mutually exclusive. I'm an agnostic atheist. I don't know if there's a God or not, but I don't believe in one until someone shows me evidence that there is one, and then I will, But the problem is no one can seem to do that. And every time I've looked, I haven't found it, So I'm not convinced that there's of like the supernatural. Like I know a lot of people who believe in the supernatural. It doesn't have to be like God or a religion, but
just something,
ghosts or, psychic energy, there's a lot of people who believe in all kinds of things. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm not saying it couldn't be real, but there's certainly no science that backs it up. And whenever I ask someone to like kind of prove it, they don't. And
Right. So, but
yeah,
it may be one of those things that it's unprovable, but does
right,
not cancel the existence of it, right?
right,
I think that's like where I land is there's things that we're never going to figure out, right? So there's no way for us to be able to know what happened before the Big Bang, right? Um, there's only we're gonna have to like just guess, and that's what we're
hmm,
stuck to, right? We can never know the answer. Just like we know today, we can never know the answer was what's inside of a black hole.
right. We
We
talked
just
about that.
guessed.
We
We
do.
talked about
By the way, we argue. We still argue all the time, but we argue about like sciencey things, like what's
yeah,
at the center of a black
but
hole. You know.
right, and then we're just like, well, here's people's best guess, right? I feel like those to me that 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 there's laws and there's things that happen that we're never going to know the answer. That still leaves the door open to something uh, grand, right? It could be spiritual. It could be a guy with a white beard, just you know, waiting for us when we pass. Um, like the possibilities are infinite because we have no clue what what it can be because we're never going to find out. That's why I think what religion has gotten wrong was they're trying to give an answer to
Hmm.
something instead of just being like um, uh, things to like to me religion should be minus all the special things that happen and look at the core of like just treating everybody well and doing good things are rewarded, right? You can help somebody out and then get hit by a car and that guy could save your life, right? um,
Yeah. So when I'm glad you completed, because a lot of people would might have heard that and assumed you meant doing good things for other. You're rewarded by in an afterlife by
That possibility is not off the table, right? Because that's
okay.
once again that's an answer to a question that we can never answer,
Okay.
at least in our understanding today,
Mhm.
right? Like you need scientific proof. Can be like we all need some kind of scientific evidence to say this is what we should believe in. This is what we know is to be true, right? Um,
I mean, a
when it
lot of people don't. You know, I
Well, a
I
lot of people
do,
don't.
but
They should,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like we're all intelligent monkeys or sons of Adam and Eve and sons and daughters, right? But we're all, you know what I mean? Like we're all in this situation now.
mhm,
Like there's like the universal truth should be like if this is all we have in this life, then we should do good, right? We should help people out. I think that's just that message may come in a little bit, at least through some of the sermons I've sat through. Like, be good, but if you
mhm.
don't, hell and fire and brimstone, right? That's the message.
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
once
morality.
again generalizing that message is being lost with religion and just conversating from you, right? That's what Jesus was all about was helping people, right? That could be the universal truth is you help people,
Yeah,
except
I
no
would
one's
say that
fucking
that's
doing it.
what Jesus was partially about, and that's the important takeaway for anyone who is a Christian. Those are the parts of what Jesus, if you believe that Jesus actually existed, was a real person, and that he actually said these things, then the takeaways are all the positive things about treating other people, and so there's people have different perspectives on Jesus, whether he was real, whether he was just a human, whether he was the son of God, whether he was God in the flesh. I don't care
Yeah,
about any of that stuff until someone proves any of it. But for the people who believe it, I'm good with you if you're taking the good things.
yeah,
But and the problem with religion, the Bible specifically, but religion in general, is because a lot of them do teach a lot of good things. They have moral lessons in
yeah,
there, but a lot of them have shitty lessons too. And they teach bad things.
yeah.
And my position is that morality is independent of what any religious book says. We
Uh,
should be able to figure out what is moral without
You feel it, right?
looking
But
at a
then
book.
some people have a chemical mix up in their head where they don't feel that. They don't feel
Right.
good helping people or sorry for anyone.
So these are outliers,
Yeah.
and there is antisocial personality disorder. We do have sociopaths who lack a sense of empathy. Um, Surprisingly, a lot of them end up being, well, not a lot of them, but there's a lot of people who are religious who have that condition. And for people, because I've met them personally, people who don't have empathy for their fellow man, who don't understand how to be moral, who think that the only thing that keeps them being a moral person and not just someone who's out there raping and killing or whatever, if they think that the only thing doing that is the Bible or whatever religion they are beholden to, I want them to continue being religious.
Yeah.
I don't think that what they believe is true, but if they think it's true and they think that's where morality comes from and that's the only thing keeping them behaving morally, then I want them to keep believing in it. So I'm
Yeah.
very careful now when I talk to people who I either identify that way or I suspect are that way, because they could potentially be a dangerous person without religion, right?
Yeah.
So religion's not for everyone, but it is for some people and for different reasons. And it's until there's a different coping mechanism available for various demographics. Um, I am not. I'm not trying to take everyone's religion away from them, because I realize that not everyone has alternative coping mechanisms, and some people need it. It's just not something that I need. And certainly, if they're using their religious beliefs to promote harmful things, like we should hate gay people or take away, LGBT rights or anti-abortion, whatever position, I'm pro-choice, right? I think women
Hmm.
have a right to choose. Some people who claim to be pro-life, they're not really pro-life. They're anti-woman's choice, but they claim to be pro-life and they say they are because the Bible. Well,
Yeah.
the Bible doesn't really say that, so that doesn't really make any sense. But whatever, it's their religious belief. If they're using their religion to try to legislate like laws that affect other people, that's when I'm like, yeah, I'm against that form
Agreed.
of religion. But if they're believing in something because it makes them feel good, it gives them a warm and fuzzy, I'm not. I don't need to take that away from anybody. It doesn't really affect me. Going back to our time in the military, all although I think a lot of them were fake. Like I
They
know
were
a lot of
probably
people in the
part timers,
military
right? They were
religious,
just
but
like that's the culture is, we get up, we go fly jets, and then we go to church, and then we go drink all night long, right? That
right.
was the culture, right? So that's uh they're like part timers, but it works for them. Whatever. They got dangerous jobs and crazy lives, right? So I saw a comment here. I thought it would be fun for us to talk about because I know we talked about it before, but
Which one was
someone
it?
had said that there was so much wrong with the Bible, and this is not trying to burn you, Mister Bible burner, but there's so much wrong with the Bible that damn near prevents Christianity, proves that
That
it's
Kidman
false, right?
proves
Yeah,
Christianity
thanks.
false. Yeah.
Um, I always, and we've had this conversation, but let's say God actually came down and like talked to Moses and everybody, right? Take into account what their understanding of what the universe is, right? Is just it's my goat patch, and there's
Hmm.
white things up there, right? And the scary sun comes up and then it goes away, and we don't know if it's coming back tomorrow, right? Now, picture God trying to explain to people how the universe works, what is it all about, and what's the plan of you in it, right? To these feeble-minded people, right? It's crazy. They can't even comprehend the hell this guy's talking to you, right? So people look at the Bible and be like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Just keep in mind of you trying to explain the universe and why everything is to your 5-year-old, right?
Yes.
And then tell them to write it down, right? So
Yeah.
I always saw the Bible as like that. That if if God did come down and spread his word to everybody with,
Hmm.
the knowledge of everything to explain it to these feeble-minded people, uh, how would they interpret it, right? So the Bible may be wrong or whatever. And keep in mind that there was no written scriptures for a long time. It was passed down by word of mouth, right?
Don't take this personally. I'm gonna push back a little bit because I always do that with my
Yeah,
guests
bring it.
when they do something like that. So everything you just said there is true. And that's exactly the type of argument I would have made when I was a Christian apologist for some of the atheists that would be challenging scripture. I've
Right.
actually used that argument before. It is technically true, but there's an alternative theory as well. What if, while acknowledging that, yes, it is possible that a God existed and he needed a way to explain to people with the minds of children in a simplistic way that they could actually understand, he would have written it and he would have written the language vague and kind of like a fairy tale, kind of like the Bible is written.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain logic to that. The alternative idea is, what if men were just trying to understand how the universe worked and they posited that there was a god responsible for these different things, kind of like they did with the Greek pantheon, where you have a god of lightning and a god of war and a
Mm-hmm.
god of this and a god of that. There's a god to explain everything that we don't understand where it comes from, and then finally you get to a monotheistic god, which is all powerful and can really be the explanation for everything. What if it was men that really just kind of wrote that story because it seemed like it made sense to them, and then they started telling these stories over and over again and
Mm-hmm.
passed that down through oral tradition? That's possible too,
I agree. Yeah, and
right?
to me, that makes the most sense.
Right.
Is
And so the
that's how
second
it
part,
works,
because the
right?
second part of that is, Occam's razor, right?
Yes.
The simplest explanation is the best one, right? So
Right.
between the two theories, um, God actually is for real, but he's invisible, he's silent, he's intangible, doesn't leave any direct evidence, but leaves, talk to Moses, who's dead, nobody can interview him,
Mm-hmm.
and told him to tell this story. And he does that, but he tells it in a simplistic way. And then they play the telephone game until we get to 2021, and we're still trying to figure out which God is real. Is there any God real? An all-knowing God, by the way, who would have foreseen all of this. Is Does that make more? Is that more
Well,
likely, or is it more likely that?
well, that does if God is actually all knowing and knows what's happening every second, right? So all knowing could be like, I'm going to give you everything that I've learned now, not what I'm going to learn tomorrow. Just bleh, right?
Mhm.
That's the all knowing. I understand how the universe works. I'm all knowing, right? I, and you could even break that down, like, some of the richest people in the world, they know how money works, right? They're all knowing because they're mega rich and they're always going to be mega rich, right? So that the whole um if you use the word all knowing, I mean, once again, you're using your understanding and interpretation of what that means.
True. I am only comparing. I'm comparing the different possibilities to see which one is the simplest and the most, and therefore the most reasonable to believe. I think the simplest explanation is that man invented God, just like, because there's precedent for that. There's like evidence throughout human history that men
Yeah.
invented has always been inventing
Yeah,
gods to
absolutely.
explain things. So that seems plausible. There seems to be evidence to support that. And the more complicated answer seems to be that there's a thing that we can't explain because it's too complicated that's responsible for
Well,
everything.
but then again, if you look at nature, there is always a complicated answer, right? Um, and once again, it's just who is the person making the comment, right? Like,
I
uh,
appreciate that, Bible burner. Just left a comment. This might be my favorite show.
oh, bless your heart, dude.
He's talking about of all the shows that I've done,
Because
and
it's me. I'm Chuck. You should have me
it's
on like
it's
every week.
it's Chuck the
Uh,
Deist, Charlie the Deist,
um,
Chuck Wagon
like Albert Einstein, right? So Albert Einstein was arguably the smartest guy
of his
on,
time.
on planet of his time, right? All knowing, like this guy figured out the universe. He figured out how space time works. He came up with E equals MC squared, right? He had the answer to like almost everything. But even when he made his theories, right, he brought bias into it.
Hmm.
He initially said, here's general relativity, here's special relativity. Oh yeah, and the universe is static. It's always been, right? Because that's what he believed coming into that. Um, so for like you touched on that either, right? You're trying to make the answers work to what you believe, right?
Yeah. I mean, that it
Like
seems
that's
intuitive. There are certain things that seem intuitive, right? And so you begin there. This is true when you're formulating scientific theories as well, where you begin with what you know, and if you don't know it,
everybody. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's gonna be like that. It's just we're we're human. We're always going to look at something and give it the answer that we feel is best, right? And then
Mhm.
it's going to get trumped by something else, and so on and so forth, right?
Oh, we
That
have an
is
objection, Charlie. Joe says that the smartest man was Nikola Tesla.
no, no. Sorry, this the smartest man in his field, right? Like he knew exactly how the universe worked. Tesla didn't. Tesla was good at understanding how electricity work and how you harness that and how you produce it and how and he was an inventor and he had a great mind like that. So yeah, he was probably the smartest guy in his field during the time.
You took that comment way more seriously than I suspect he intended, and more seriously than I
Oh,
would have
well,
taken it.
there you go. I'm taking this serious. Yeah.
We are at an hour and 32 minutes, and I would love to go. I could talk to you all day, but we'll probably chat this weekend anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want the show to go too much longer than this because people have lives and they have things they want to do. However, we do have a Discord after party if people are interested. Are you familiar with Discord, Chuck?
Yes, you told me about it. So I haven't
I've
gotten on
told you
there.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have time still, you can join us in Discord for an audio visual discussion. If you've got other things to do,
I
that's
have some
fine
time.
too. But I would definitely like to invite everyone in the chat. If you've been watching the show and you would like to continue the discussion, join the Tang Discord. The link has been in the chat a couple of times, but it'll pop up again. Yeah, it'll pop up again. It's in the chat though. But most of you who are watching already know the link. If you don't, hit me up in a DM and I will send it to you. But this was a great discussion. I really appreciate you coming on
Yeah, that's
here.
fun.
I had a great time. It looks like the chat had a great time, and if you want to come on again, I mean, you've got the open invite, you've got the personal connection, right?
Yeah.
So you have, and that goes for a lot of the other people in the chat as well, if you are interested. For those of you watching, if you've enjoyed the show, do me a favor and smash the like button. And don't forget to subscribe as well. There's a lot of people who are watching. I saw people in the comments talking about how they watch all these shows, but they just realized they haven't subscribed yet. Shame on you. Subscribe to Tang, the Atheist Network group, for almost daily content, certainly weekly content. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for us. We have normally when I get like a pseudo famous person or someone with a media personality, I post links to their stuff in the
I
chat.
have no
But
stuff
you're not really that kind of guy. You're just kind of a guy who likes to golf and talk shit about me, and then
all the time.
occasionally agree to come on my show. So,
Yeah.
but you're definitely welcome in the Discord. I'd like to thank everybody who participated in the chat. Thank you, Charlie, the Deist, for explaining your views. And
Thanks for having me on, man. It was fun.
yeah, maybe you'll get to explain a little bit more. I'm certain people will have more questions for you.
Great.
But until next time, I am Brycearonee, and for Sunny Shell and producer Wes, neither of whom could be here today. Hopefully we will have them the next time. We did have producer Oz in the background, so thank you, Oz, for all of the work that you did. I'm Brycearonee. I will see you guys next time on The Bryce is Right. Have a good morning, a good evening. Wow, I totally screwed up my own tagline. So you got me all discombobulated because you're on the show. Normally, what I say is have a good morning, good evening, good night. I'll see you next time on The Bryce is Right, but I can't even get my own tagline right. So
I do
but
that. I have that
anyway,
effect.
see you guys on the next show. Take care.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.